Well, good morning everyone. Breakfast with Evo, and as you can see, I'm at the golf club today because we're going to go and have a look at hole 1 and learn a few bits on how to improve our scores on that hole. As you can see, it's an absolute belter of a day. Full complement of green staff in today, which is clearly great news. Course is being manicured. So coffee and bacon roll, yeah, I've had those already. Well, I wish I had. But it's time to get down to the first tee, go and see how we can improve that hole. Well, I was just on my way to the first tee and bumped into a familiar face on the golf course, and as we know, the course has been closed, but that doesn't mean to say there's been a lot going on here. So let's have a look and see who today's mystery guest is.
As Eric Walker would say.
We're socially distancing and I can't get any closer to you than this, Pete.
I don't really want you to get any closer to me than that, Evo. Thank you very much.
I know you've been extremely busy over the last 4 or 5 weeks, so tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Well, over the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've simply kept the course in condition as far as we can without doing too much work on the rough areas or anything like that. But we've taken the view, as most of you know from my newsletter, that we're expecting golf to kick off hopefully in some shape or form towards the end of this month. So we made the decision that today we're bringing back all the team off furlough that aren't under any restrictions themselves or don't have any partners or under restrictions. So at the moment we've got 7 back, and we're starting to really bring the course up to speed. And I'm absolutely delighted to tell you that today we've got something like 25 volunteers coming in to weed the bunkers. We've got another 25 coming in tomorrow, and I sincerely hope that by the end of 2 or 3 days hard work, all the bunkers will be weeded. The boys will then go round, rake them, top them up with sand and get them ready for play so that you bunch can come back and bash them to bits. But anyway, we're getting ready for you. We look forward to welcoming you all back. So thanks a million.
Well, on my way down to the first tee now, and what great news that from Peter, that things are really progressing on the course. And I've noticed with my little walks round how much the grass now has really started to grow, and there's a really nice coverage everywhere. Yes, there's a lot to do, and this cold wind hasn't helped over the last week or 2 either, you know. So I think it's really shaping up. It's looking fantastic, nice and green, and obviously as the work continues with a full team, then things will really pick up. And you can imagine the size of this site, and we've only had 4 guys in. I mean, it's incredible really. So lots to do, but it'll all be absolutely fantastic by the end of the month, I'm sure. Let's get on to that first tee now, show you what's going on. Well, at 475 yards, par 5, I love this hole. It's a great place to start. It used to be an awful place to start because it was 452 yards and it was a par 4. It was such a difficult hole. But now it's a nice, easy start to the round. But what we've got to do is we've got to really set the bar high and think 4. Let's not think 5, let's think 4. Let's think it is like an old par 4, and we're going to try and make that score. Sometimes when it's a par 5 like this, we think too easy, plod it down there, and we don't go for what we should. I make lots of 3s on this hole, and that's a fantastic way to start the round. Right, 475, I'm on the white tee. Let's have a look down the hole, see how we're going to play it from this back tee position. Okay, so standing on the back white plate, you're playing in a competition and you can drive the ball a long way. Well, you may favour the left-hand side and you're going to try and hug that left-hand side. And the reason why is because there are bunkers on the right and the camber on the fairway will take the ball. And if you can reach those bunkers on the right-hand side, then you are definitely going to kick to the right and go in. If you're a long hitter playing from a slightly forward tee, you might be able to get past them. But remember, the danger of the two right-hand bunkers. But the two right-hand bunkers are ideally positioned, because if you can't hit the ball past those bunkers, just remember it's the right-hand side of the hole that's best for attacking the green because of the angle on the camber of the green. So we'll talk about that in a second. So remember, back tee, make your decision if you can hit it a long way, tight down the left so it cambers round to the right, or if you're going to lay up, make sure that shot lands in the middle, runs down to the right-hand side, because the right-hand side is the best attacking place for you to actually get into most of the pin positions on this green. Well, we're going to wander down 464 off the yellows. Remember, let's treat it as a par 4. And it's still a long par 5 now for the ladies. 440 yards. And again, favour the right-hand side. Land the ball in the middle. And remember, let the ground do the rest. Ball will kick down to the right-hand side. And we'll go down there now and show you exactly where to lay up if you can't reach in 2, and why we've hit it down the right-hand side, short of those right-hand bunkers, to get the right angle into the green. Well, it's an absolute hive of activity down here on the course this morning. Got green staff everywhere. All the volunteers come to help weed out the bunkers and everything. It's an absolutely amazing thing to see. I feel a bit guilty here just making a film, but let's crack on, because remember, it's the advice you need on how to play hole 1. And now I've come to a position where I'm about 260 or 270 yards to the green, and this is going to be a very, very popular spot for those of you who have hit regular tee shots, not bombing them down the fairway. You're going to be going for the green in 3. And remember this now, what we tend to do, there are bunkers on the right hand side of this hole, as you can see, and what happens now is that we avoid the bunkers. So the tendency is to hit the ball as far left with your layup as you possibly can, and that's completely the wrong thing to do. You need to be on the right hand side of this fairway, hitting your 3rd shot into the green. You can even be in the right-hand rough and still have a decent shot that will play much, much easier, and it will give you a better chance at birdie. You'll get closer to the hole all the time, and I'll show you when we get up there exactly the same. So, laser the bunkers as far up there as you can, and as long as you're short of the 2 right-hand bunkers, which are short of the green, you're in prime position. Let's go down a little bit further now and have a look and see where you've ended up if you've driven the ball a long way and you're going for the green. Okay, so here we are. I've hit that successful tee shot from whichever tee it was, white tee at the back, yellow tee, or the ladies. You've hit some cracking drives. You're on the right hand side of the fairway. I'm short of the bunkers, and I'm really pleased with myself because now I've got a great line into the green, and that's going to allow me to get a great chance for a 3, or certainly a better chance at making a 4. So why have I kept saying let's hit it down the right hand side? Well, look how much the green slopes, then look at the approach to the green and how much that slopes down from left to right. So basically you can use the ground to get your ball to go towards the flag, whichever position it's in. We all know that the greens can be firm for most of the playing season, and the ball will roll round all the way to the right hand side of the green, whichever type of shot you play in. Unless you can hold the green with a really big high draw, you're not going to be able to hold it, and it will roll to the right hand side or off into the rough on the right hand side virtually every time. So from here I've got about 200 yards to go. Pick your club. Remember now, you're going to be aiming this shot at the left front corner of the green. If it lands there, and it'll go through. A bit of advice in terms of the distance: you don't need to hit your ball past halfway on this green. Just remember that. If you're hitting it on the green in 2, you've taken advantage of the hole and you're going to make a birdie. But if you hit it through the back, the chip to a back pin position in particular is really, really awkward. So we want to avoid being long at all costs. So remember, I always use yardage markers on this hole. I'll laser where I need to go to the pin, and then I'll come back, and my ball won't go past the pin very often. So I'll always be trying to come up slightly shorter of the pin, and that also gives me an uphill putt as well. Let's go over to the left-hand side of the fairway now, and I'll show you what the difficulties are with pitching your ball into this hole from the left-hand side of that fairway. Well, I'm now on the right edge of the fairway, and if you look now carefully, I'm going to use from this right-hand side an angle which looks like this and goes towards the green at this angle. Now this angle into the green, what happens there is that that ball pitches into the slope and then comes round to the right. So just remember, this is the angle to approach. Now the more I come even into the rough, and obviously we don't want to be in the thick stuff, but certainly if I'm in the semi, that's not a problem at all, because all I do then is I increase the angle that I'm hitting my ball into that camber. That's great, because it will kick straight and then come to the right. So the first bounce is the all-important bounce on that position. Now we're going to move to the other side of the fairway, and we're going to have a look and see what goes on with that layup. The more I move across the fairway now, I've now just reached the center cut, and now my direction to the middle of the green in fact is there. So you can see now that the angle of my shot is now slightly angled to the right. So when it lands, the first bounce will inevitably be more to the right. That's going to kick my ball off to the right. So this is a favored position for lots and lots of people now. Walk it over to the other side of the fairway, you'll get yourself into position, and you think you've hit this fantastic layup shot. And now I'm on the left hand side on the fairway. So now let's have a look exactly where I am in terms of the middle of the green. Well, the middle of the green is now there. So as I hit that shot, the first bounce will be straight right, and that means that from that position you are not going to get anywhere near a pin position that is either middle or on the left hand side, because your ball is going to actually finish in the rough on the right, because the severity of the slope and the angle that you played the shot in, that's just kicked it to the right, and now you're off the green. Well, this is a huge green, and remember what I said about lasering the distance to the pin, but making sure that you come up slightly short of that position, and that'll give you an uphill putt, because the green slopes from back to front, and it also slopes severely from left down to right. And that's what we were talking about your ball kicking to the right, and hopefully you laid up on the right, and now you've been able to come into the green at a good angle. Let's have a look at this camera as we go down, and you can see this green and how much it actually slopes. This left hand side is even worse, so remember, attacking it from the right place is absolutely crucial. Well, that's it for the rundown of the hole, and the theme for today is fairway woods. Now, you guys thought I was running out of things to talk about on my films, but quite to the contrary, this week's going to be action-packed like the other weeks have been, and we're going to look at fairway woods today, because I know it's a great source of problems for lots and lots of players. Topping fairway woods, not getting them off the ground, not contacting them as you should, and we get really, really low on confidence with those. So we're going to have a look at fairway woods in detail. So let's get back to the garden and have a look and see what we can do to help you out with those fairway wood shots. Well, that first hole is a really, really nice place to start your round. and you always get a decent drive away down there. Your ball's on that tee peg, fire it away with confidence, absolutely perfect. But it's the second shot now that we're going to look at, fairway wood, if that's what you're going to play, or fairway woods on other holes that you might be struggling with. It's one of the biggest topics that I get with people who come for lessons, struggling with fairway woods. I don't use a 3-wood anymore because I just can't hit it. I use my 5-wood, I use my 7-wood, and for some reason they seem to be easier. The concept of hitting them all, of course, is exactly the same, as is probably the ball position that we use to play those shots. So it's important to understand why we can't hit those clubs as well as we probably should. If I put a 3-wood on a tee peg for you, I'm sure you'd crack it away fine. And that gives you a little clue as to what we've got to look at here in the garden to get those fairway wood shots played nicely, even off tight lies. Well, I suppose the key to what we're looking at here is the most common story I hear, and that's I keep topping these clubs, and topping them is probably the most consistent report I get from people who are struggling with fairway woods. So we're going to go through that, and we'll also go through directional issues, and the directional issues will generally come from maybe something that's wrong with either your swing path or the club face position, but most of all ball position. So ball position, remember, you're trying to hit those clubs from a forward ball position, and that allows the club to get back into a square position because it's swinging at a much shallower arc. And I'm going to explain this to you now so that you can see it, the difference between short clubs and long clubs, and why we changed the ball position. So let's look at that now. You'll get a much better picture of what we're actually going to do. Well, I've taken 3 clubs out of the bag: driver, 3-wood, and sand wedge. So look at the difference between the lengths of the shafts. Longer shots low, higher shots short. And that's the difference in the way that the clubs are built in terms of their length, plus the fact the loft on the face. 10 degrees, 58 degrees. Because of the way I set up to a shorter club, the angle of the shaft is much more upright. So if I copy this angle in the backswing, you can see the position of the shaft and club head. This is my driver. Look at the difference in the angle of the shaft. And if I copy this angle, you can see that the club head is now way more behind me. So it's swinging a lot shallower or flatter. Now you can imagine if the ball position was in the back of my stance and I get to here, now the club is pointing over to the right, but as it arcs through and it gets to my left heel ball position, the club face has time to get square and the shaft is obviously in line with it. So there's no point trying to hit my driver from my back foot because it's a long shaft and it swings shallower. Vice versa with my sand wedge, if I was in a situation where the ball was too far forward, I'd hit it left all the time, and that's why we have the ball position for that club at the back. Because it's steeper, it gets back to a square position much sooner. So if you're not moving your ball position round for different shots, then I want to know why. And if you want to get that checked out with your coach, go through the sequencing of ball positions, because it will help you to hit the ball in much straighter lines. So that's the first part of this story. Is your ball position right? Now let's move on to the next position, which is the arc, how the arc is affected, and how the ball position affects the delivery of the club. So my 3-wood is out, I've got the ball ready to go, I've set myself up, and I know that textbook style for this shot that I'm trying to play, just a normal 3-wood, my ball position needs to be opposite my left heel. That's ideal. If I'd like to get the ball to go a bit higher, sometimes I move it forward, but let's go with a standard left heel ball position, and then we'll find out a few truths about what's going on in your downswing, that the reason why you're topping the ball or not contacting it properly. So we'll take a ball, put it in position, opposite the left heel, and I'm ready to go. Now the position of the ball is really important, and as you can see that my left arm shaft fairly straight lined, not pushed forward too much. I don't really like that position for me. But my sternum, because my center is here, look at the difference between the positioning of the ball and my sternum, which is now much further behind, because that's in the center of my stance. If I now turn behind the ball, you'll see how far behind that point of contact my sternum is. So what I now need to do is to make sure that my sternum has rotated back into a position where it's now level with the back of the ball, because that's my point of contact, not back here where it was. So let's have a look and see what a poor position at impact would look like. You can see the position of the handle is just in front of the ball. I turn to the top and my sternum is well behind, and now, because I want to try and hit this club a bit too hard, I swing through, and the body, the sternum, stays back here. The weight's a bit too much on the right, and I've caught the ground way behind, and the golf club is now on its way up. And that's how I top the ball, because as that club rises, it hits above the equator, and that's where you get your top shot from. So that's a really, really important thing to remember, is that we must get the sternum and the belt buckle in tandem, good rotational relationship between the lower body and the upper body. Well, my engineering skills know no bounds. I still haven't been picked for the engineers in the skiing trophy matches, so Michael, I am available if you're ever short of a team player. So let's get back onto my little contraption here, and now, although it's not the same as my wide arc in swing, this represents the arc of a swing, and as you can see, the bottom of that diameter, the bottom of that circle, that's going to be my contact position. And the reason why is because it's that part of the circle, that part of the arc, that's touching the ground. Remember that. As the club goes back, it comes up slightly. As it goes forward, it moves up slightly. So if your club is arriving after the bottom of the circle, it's on its way up, and that's where you're going to top the ball. So in this instance, I've set up the circle so it's level with my sternum. Let's take a look at that. So I've placed the ball position off my left heel. Now I'll get myself set up, and as you can see, if I put the club opposite my sternum, it's a middle ball position now, and I'm at the bottom of the circle. So if I now set myself up here, which is at the front, you can see that my club potentially is this much off the ground as it comes through, probably not as much. So let's have a look and see what happens here now if I stay back. I ground at the bottom of the circle instead of the the right position opposite my left heel. So the key to this now is, can we adjust this position so that I get myself into that correct position with the lower body and the upper body in the downswing, so that the golf club arrives at the ball at the bottom of the arc. Remember, that's the absolute key to contacting these shots properly. Okay, so what I need to do to make a success and understand this arc now is I need to move my sticks according to where the bottom of the arc is. Left heel ball position, let's move it now, and I'm going to move it opposite the center so you can see it's forward at the moment. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move it so it's now level with the center of the arc. Place my club opposite that position. You can still see that my sternum is back, but what I must do now is understand that I'm getting the club to the bottom of the circle, which means it's now at the bottom of the ball. Let's have a look. Now from here I've gone through the bottom of the ball and now I've driven it away. Let's have a look in a full arc swing. Opposite the center. Set myself up. You can see that my sternum is back. Turn forward. That position, grinding out, contacting the bottom of the ball at the bottom of the arc. Let's have a look with the ball. Okay, we're now going to try and hit one bottom of the arc. As you can see, I've placed it into position, turn back, and then make sure I return the handle position back forward to where it was, and I'm going to do that with the use of my body, rotating forwards and getting myself back up to the correct contact position, which is at the bottom of the arc. Bottom of the arc. Not coming up, not going down, bottom of the arc. Let's have a go. Balls forward, look at the sternum position. Let's have a look and see what happens. Well, I've absolutely nailed that one there. That's another lost ball in the garden. Never mind. Let's have a look at it in slow motion and see what that looked like from a body rotation position. And did the club get to the bottom of the ball? Well, okay, you've seen from that slow motion picture there how the handle came back to its original position and it was brought back to that position by the body rotating forwards. If I hang back, the handle stays back and the golf club starts to come away from the ground, and that's how you top the ball. Let's have a look at that position. Turn to the back, body stays back, handle comes forward. Now you can see with the handle in this position, which is back opposite my sternum, that's when it's going to come off the ground. The rotational movement that we want, it's got us to the top. Now look how we move forward and look at the position of the shaft as it's arrived at the bottom of the arc. It's done that from the rotation and brought it forwards. There's lots and lots and lots of stuff like this to learn about your fairway woods and how you can manipulate them and hit them better. But certainly from tight lies, normal fairway positions, if you're having trouble topping the ball, work on the things that we've looked at today and you are going to improve those shots out of sight. You never know, you may end up getting a 3-wood back in your bag and reaching that first green in 2 and having a putt for a 3. Hope you've enjoyed today's video. Stay safe everyone. See you next time. press the like button, and we will see you tomorrow for another episode of Breakfast with Evo.